Welcome everybody to the network plumbing, sorry, other discussions. The SIG network meeting for Thursday, September 15th, 2022. First up, we have Triage.
Awesome. Let's take a quick look. We start with kubelet kube proxy not working with a certain version of IP tables. Let's see if we've got anything on here. We've got some commentary. What do we think?
You can assign this.
Sorry, I forgot that.
Sorry, please give, because when I'm sharing, I can't see who's talking. So if I can get a username to assign to, that would be great.
Dan Winship.
There you are. Wonderful. And are we triage accepting it, or is it like this is an investigation moment?
I didn't really see much of the comments, but
okay. Oh wait, but thanks for taking the assignment. Awesome. All right, network policy block access, specifically for Nginx ingress controller. Just kind of scrolling down, it looks like Antonio thought this is SIG network.
Just send this one to me, Bridget, please. That's
okay.
Ricardo.
Ricardo, wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. I will at least transfer this to Ingress Nginx if this is RIKKATZ. That's the fourth.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Kubelet not recognizing multiple options in etcresolve.conf. Let's see who. It looks like we have some discussion already happening. Whoa, bunch of discussion already happening in here. Do we have someone who wants to own this one, or? I love it. We're including books. All right. So kubelet specific question. What do we think? Possibly relevant that it's a very recent version of Ubuntu, but unsure.
I think this is, code that we own but don't really touch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's kubelet, it's not.
Yeah.
Who's looked at this recently?
All right, what do we want to do with this one? Looks like somebody was Git blaming Tim, but sorry, what was that?
Do we have any volunteers?
Where would this be described? Is this described in some standard somewhere? I mean, what is the right answer? I think that's the first question here. It's one thing what the code does, right? But sort of, is this part of and bind is one thing, but resolve.conf has been around much longer than bind.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like Antonio is pointing out other things that could break too.
I'll check. Yeah, no.
What username am I assigning it to?
Antonio?
Great.
Yep.
Done. Fantastic. Okay. cluster IP. A service cluster IP has no endpoints, and it's different from a service of node point that has no endpoints. Oh boy. All right, let's.
Well, 10 days ago, Dan.
Hello.
No, I don't regularly check to see if people randomly assign me PRs. Okay, I will look at it.
All right, that was easy. For some values of easy. Okay, getting killed after startup probe failure. Let's see. Oh, we've got a bunch of troubleshooting here. Interesting. Is this relevant to SIG network is the question. Well,
If you
okay.
go all the way up, Bridget.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if SIG node is actually taking ownership of it. Yeah, it looks like they have it.
So,
Needs info. What do we think?
well, the startup probe failure, it looks like it's trying to use an HTTP probe. So that the network plugin that's being used might be relevant here. Maybe
it looks like somebody, it looks like someone pointed that out further down and they raised something against Calico. I feel like I may have looked at this issue the other day actually, but I'm still looking up.
That's also like, it would be nice to see if it's still present in versions of Kubernetes that we actively support, but.
I mean, you could assign this one to me and I'll take a look at least. And it might be a node thing. It might be a network thing. I don't know.
Casey, there you go. Yeah, I'm always concerned when people say like, this is happening in 1.18, because it's like, okay, is it still happening? Because, yeah. All right, endpoint slice mirroring. See that 3 times fast. So we create without a controller. Oh, we've got a bunch of discussion here from a couple weeks ago. What are we thinking? Looks like someone's self-assigned. Huh. Like somebody thinks that they're fixing this and they're looking for the review.
Yeah,
sorry,
I've been looking at the PR for this, and I just need to come back to it again. I think they're correct, but it takes a bit of time to actually be sure.
Are we triage accepting this?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Because if we're actively reviewing a PR for it, that sounds like we're saying it's real.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Wait, did I do that right? Yeah, okay. Let's see, endpoint slice mirroring. That's how far I got. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're about at time, right? One more.
Yep.
Okay.
Sure. Yep,
let's end on this one.
Minutes.
Sorry?
We have a couple more minutes. So yeah, let's end on this one.
Okay, so we've got more endpoints. Endpoint objects fail to affect service objects that previously had selectors. But this says that they only affect service objects that have never had a selector. Let's go down and see if this is lots of detail. And then it looks like we had a request for more detail that we don't necessarily have. Rob, do you have any further insights on this?
No, I think we're just waiting for a response. It's been kind of quiet.
I'll just, ping them. Okay. All right, and I think we are done triaging. We're not 100% done with the list, but we've made progress. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Bridget.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up, I'd like to do the Windows things first before we get to multi-network, just because those seem like they probably would take a little less time. So M.A. Rossett?
Hi, I'm Mark. I'm the chair of SIG Windows, and got two issues to discuss. Yeah, hopefully they're pretty quick. The first issue is that I was looking through the feature gates that were called out in the features package, and I noticed that there's two very old feature gates that are only used in kubeproxy that were never tracked with a KEP or an enhancement issue. WinDSR, which was added in 1.14 and has been in alpha since 1.14, and WinOverlay, which was also added in 1.14 but went to beta in 1.20. I don't have a ton of history around those, but I think we should probably try and progress those. I did ask in SIG architecture in the Slack channel, and the conversation is linked in the meeting notes, kind of what the protocol is for this. And Jordan had said usually what happens is a retroactive KEP is authored that pretty much describes kind of the current state of things. I think it's like less heavy on design details and discussion. And then that KEP is mainly used just to kind of qualify graduation criteria and things. I was wondering if anybody had any concerns with doing that for these two feature gates. I think they're pretty tightly coupled, so we could probably just do one retroactive KEP. And also, if there was any preference, if SIG Windows is the owning SIG or SIG Network. I was talking with Mike Zappa too, and I think we'd be okay with having SIG Windows own it.
Yeah, I'd prefer SIG Windows to own these. In the past, we've had not good luck with kubeproxy, getting good reviews for kubeproxy on Windows. So yeah, anything you can do to help improve that, I think SIG Windows is a great owning SIG for that.
Okay, is there anything else to discuss with this then, or should I just proceed and try and find just reviewers from SIG Network?
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay. Sounds good. The next issue was I was also taking a look at things, and I opened up a new KEP for supporting host or node namespacing for Windows pods. Took a look, and the Windows operating system, we have all of the APIs we need to wire that up, but containerd, the only container runtime right now that we use with Windows, doesn't support this. But it looks like it would be not that difficult to add this support here. So I authored a quick KEP, and I'm looking for kind of reviewers or feedback for this too. Only changes I've identified in Kubernetes components are in the kubelets. We probably need to add new CRI API fields to communicate that we want to join these to the node namespace, network namespace, and then actually wire up those fields. But I thought since it's networking related too, I'd stop by here for feedback. SIG node already said it looks pretty straightforward, and we have a +1 to proceed.
Is anyone on the call more familiar with the current state of Kaping, the next generation kubeproxy? Like, it's been a while since we've had net new features in kubeproxy, and kubeproxy next gen has been moving along since then. I don't know what the answer is. I just
So they've been working on updating the KEP, and I thought Jay was going to send mail to SIG Network, but he didn't. But anyway, you can go and look at the KEP. Paste the. It's definitely ready to have. Here we go. It's ready to have people look at and review the KEP again to get an idea of what the Kaping group has done, and provide feedback to them, because they've gone off and done a ton of work on this, but there was never actually an accepted enhancement about, this is what the SIG expects them to do and is willing to consider and stuff like that. So we sort of have to figure out how we're going to get all this work that they've done into Kubernetes proper at this point.
And in this case, this isn't touching kubeproxy. This is this has happened during the pod sandbox generation in the container runtime.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, the kubelet basically looks at for the host network flag and then does some validate. Well, there's supposed to be validation done. So the other motivation for this is you can set host network to true on a pod, and if it's scheduled to a Windows node, it passes validation, but then it's joined to the pod network. So it can be confusing too. But as far as I could tell, the kubelet just populates the fields and sends it off to the container runtime and tells the container runtime how to configure the networking.
Okay, makes sense.
And kind of on a related note, the reason why I uncovered the other feature gates where I was doing a prototype of getting KPNG running on Windows nodes and was able to get that mostly working on a cluster that I set up with Cluster API Provider for Azure. I think I've got contributed some PRs back, and there's still some open PRs against the repo with that.
Cool.
Cool. That's mostly all I had.
Thank you, Mark.
Any other questions for Windows folks while I'm here? Not, proceed.
Okay. Thanks, everybody who's interested. Please take a look at that enhancement and the other Windows stuff, and look out for any requests from SIG Windows on moving those things to final. So next up, multi-network. Maciej, do you want to share your screen and do your presentation?
Sure.
You should have the power.
Yeah, I see now. Yeah, I see.
I can see it, but not hear.
Okay, you can hear me okay, right?
Now I can hear you.
Yeah,
when you were sharing screen, it didn't
I got
seem
muted
to.
for some reason when I was, try again. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, can you see my screen? Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So, hi everyone, my name is Maciej Skrocki. I'm part of Google's GKE networking team. And together with other folks in the community, we'd like to kind of put forward our effort that we kicked off a few weeks back to the SIG networking group about the effort towards multi-networking introduction to Kubernetes. So basically, what we are currently having in Kubernetes is a very simple networking concept and requirement where all pods across the cluster have to be interconnected, and that's mostly the kind of main requirement for Kubernetes clusters today. Additionally, the network as what it is today basically is a just assumed concept in Kubernetes, which basically is not exposed like by any object or anything. That kind of leads towards we don't have an ability to express kind of introduction of multiple interfaces to the pod, and that kind of led to situations where probably there are other reasons for that from historically, but basically lead to a situation where such ability has been created by some side projects, out-of-band projects like Multus, which basically created ability to define and provide ability to kind of introduce that capability to Kubernetes clusters. So this is kind of where the state of kind of the situation of around this feature is today. Why we're thinking this right now is a good time to kind of bring this up is we are thinking is that Kubernetes in a very good state, is a very mature and stable, where we can start kind of maybe meddling with introducing a networking concepts into Kubernetes, core Kubernetes. Additionally, with all the other kind of projects that I mentioned before, like Multus, and there are various other ones, we have quite a lot of experience and know-how on what it means to introduce this multi-networking concept into Kubernetes world, because those additional projects already did it, right, in some way or the other. Through those, we come up with multiple use cases, which we want to kind of satisfy, like the telecom industry, or the other use case would be, for example, for addressing VMs in KubeVirt, so for multi-tenancy. And there are probably multiple other ones, but those are the like most kind of most important ones. And what initially we are thinking of kind of introducing here is to introduce a network object, which would be a reference and abstraction of what sort of networks a specific pod can connect to. It will be able to kind of be referenced by pods and maybe some other core API objects like services or network policies. The other idea would be to make sure the networks are isolated within the cluster. That kind of leads to kind of two things here: to keep the whole concept very simple, as it is today for the basically today networking requirements. So keep it simple still, and maybe not introduce things like routers or firewalls that some of you might be knowing from OpenStack world. Something that we don't want to do. And the additional thing would be to, for anyone who doesn't care much about like multi-networking in their cluster, that nothing should change. So basically keep the kind of backward compatibility and keep most of the networking concepts kind of only for those folks that really care about it. The next piece would be to integrate the support for networkings with existing components like nodes, to kind of put like information about networking centric stuff up to that object, and then leverage it for our needs. And additionally, maybe leverage some of the cluster and service sizes that was introduced recently in Kubernetes to kind of define the IPAM for those additional networks. Next thing, what we are thinking is to introduce something that we're thinking about, like node selectivity for networks. So basically what it will mean that only subsection of nodes could have access to specific networks. This is one of the kind of requirements that's quite important for us, where maybe the default network that we have today, the standard network that we all come is, the main requirement is for it to interconnect every node and be available on every node so the pods can connect. But we're thinking of for the additional networks that you would want to define that are not default, could have a node selectivity. So that will, of course, include pod scheduler to be aware of those and be able to handle such situations. So I prepared additionally some intro doc with kind of written what I just described here. There's like 4 or 5 pages around this. And this is just an intro what we are thinking. Right now, we are working on a CAP with a bunch of folks. Here you have a bunch of links for the introduction doc. We started a community meeting, and those are the link to the meeting notes for that. On the top of it, there are links onto our meeting and where we are meeting. We already have a Slack channel, and all are welcome to join in and chime into kind of whoever wants to contribute to this effort. Basically, that's all I wanted to kind of mention. Yes.
Quick comment. So for most of the problems that you have up there, Network Service Mesh already has solutions that don't require changes to Kubernetes. So scheduling to land where you can actually get the networking that you need, the ability to insert connectivity both between pods and between pods and other things, including the physical network, VMs, other pods, both as an attribute of startup if you're a normal workload, or with very sophisticated things through the life of the pod. If not, we've already got SRIO VF injection working, where you can we actually think about it differently. We don't think about it as the injection of an interface, because no one actually wants an interface. They want to be connected to some network service, possibly provided by their physical network. So those solutions have all been running for some time in network service mesh without having to actually change Kubernetes. And in addition to that, they work on all the public clouds. They work on all the CNIs they've been tried with. They don't conflict and handle avoiding confliction with the Kubernetes networking, support sophisticated features if you need them, like source-based routing within the pod. As I said, avoids IPM collisions and a whole host of other things. We've also got engagement from major NFV producers like Ericsson, who are building things based on top of this. Would it make sense for me to do like a brief presentation at the next meeting about the sort of stuff in the goodie bag, so we can sort of level set on what's available?
Yeah, definitely, because it all boils down to our requirements, and this is where we are trying to gather those. And let's definitely add, right? Let's do that. That'll be great to if you could do that, right? Because we are in a very early phase of this, and that'll be great to kind of present that. And then we are still trying to gather like use cases and requirements around this, and let's see how that.
And there are a bunch of other things that you run into very quickly in this space once you get past the interface thinking. Mm-hmm. For example, we handle correct fan out of DNS both with the Kubernetes cluster into any other secondary network services the pod is attached to, so you can do proper DNS resolution. We handle the problem of when you have two pods that are supposed to be CNFs in a service function chain that need to communicate to each other with something faster than kernel interfaces, which everyone serious playing this game does. You can't just do interface connection at startup, because you need them to be able to establish a connection when they're both running, right? So the entire CNI approach is inapplicable to that sort of a scenario. The question is, where and when would you like me to come and talk about some of the stuff in the goodies bag on this? I could certainly talk about some of it here. It sounds like you may have another meeting that we're establishing.
Yeah,
for this, that may be a better follow-on discussion.
Yeah, we have another meeting around this, so that would be the best because that meeting is all focused about this, and let's do it there.
That sounds fantastic.
And there are a link to in the presentation. There is a link to the meetings minute. And there is right now it's I'm using my corporate Meet for the meeting, but in the future hopefully we can switch to the Zoom and be part of that, so that it's more vendor neutral. But for now we have like there is a link to a Meet and
Google Meet is perfectly delightful for me. I work well with pretty much anything that isn't old school. I've forgotten what it was. It was the thing that Microsoft bought, Skype for Business. Skype for Business hates me for some reason. I don't understand. They won't let me connect. Anything else works for me. But yeah, it may be useful because it sounds like a lot of the requirements you're trying to meet are related to NFV requirements. And that's a space that we've been plumbing very deeply on the NSM front, and that we have a lot of history with. I've been, I go back in NFV almost to the beginning, well before they tried to make the cloud native jump. Okay, Bridget, best we just shouldn't name. I'll try not to name names, but your joke is well taken. All right, cool. So I found the link for that. Is your agenda sort of an open, add yourself to the agenda?
Yeah, it's just on the meeting now, feel free to just add your item, and yes.
Okay, cool. That is fantastic.
Hi, Ed. Sorry, just need to add a comment here. This is, I'm Anas Alouche from Deutsche Telekom. I was invited here by the Google EU team to participate. Maybe it's the first time I'm here exactly for this topic. Yeah. And what Shroki mentioned now is one of our biggest pain points in deploying 5G cores and ORAN related deployments, basically any telco workloads on a Kubernetes, because of this multi-interfaces, all the security that comes with it, the risks with this RIVs and so on. A lot of accelerators and so on is being used. So too much there is going on, and this is one of our big pain points. So what we are trying to do now is maybe I can share something just quickly to show if I'm not hijacking the meeting, just to show exactly, if you can see my screen. So if you can see here, this is exactly what we are. Okay, great. So this is just an old document, just to give an example. We are heavily depending now on this Multus thing, right? Which give us the ability to have multiple interfaces. Usually the ETH0, as you all know, is the main interface, and then we create extra interfaces. Sometimes it's reach out to 4 or 5 extra interfaces on one pod. Of course, that can look here a bit, simple maybe, but in reality, it's much more complex due to some of these interfaces needs to reach directly to the VF on the physical NIC port, and sometimes you have to care for its security, its policies, and so on, because these interfaces are completely outside the jurisdiction of Kubernetes networking. And in some aspects, this also poses a huge risk, so security risk, because actually you have a free way here from your inside pod to the outside. Saying this interface or this NIC got compromised by anything, then you have direct access to your application. We are looking into this risk, of course, trying also to mitigate it in some other ways by introducing some firewalling here. There's smart NICs that also can be used and so on. But as you can see, it's a topic that is crucial, and we are trying. Sorry.
Could you ping me on Slack, because I've seen many variations of this picture before, and I'd love to jump on a call and talk through what you've got here at some point, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, but I don't know which Slack and which name to ping. Is this the, because this is my I am the weird name here, A1234.
Yeah.
Give me this name for some reason.
Kubernetes Slack, CNCF Slack. Just look for Ed Warnicki. I'm super easy to find in that regard. If you get lost and confused, just say something on the #NetSM Slack, and I'll find you there. It's fairly straightforward. But I've seen this diagram a million times, and when you talk about needing to compose things in for security reasons, that's a very familiar problem to me. That's why Network Service Mesh supports composition of network services. But there are other things that you can do potentially before that around security. For example, it also supports effectively cryptographically verifiable identities for the workloads, so that you can basically make policy decisions about who can and can't connect to that VF.
Yes, exactly. And we are also, I mean, there are also other things like IPAM, who's taking care of the IPAM of these secondary interfaces and so on.
Absolutely.
Too much
and
stuff there.
How do you not conflict with the Kubernetes cluster and the other secondary interfaces that are injected with IPAM? Yeah, the IPAM is turns out to be a hard problem if you make it hard, and it turns out to be a relatively straightforward problem if you don't. So no, happy to talk. Exactly.
So this is why the KIB idea was really. Sorry.
So I hate to cut off conversation a little bit, but if we could pause this and then finish the agenda, and then if there is more time at the end of the meeting, then we can pick this back up, or we can carry it through to the next meeting.
Yeah, sure. Just wanted to make sure to if I can be invited to this next meeting between you, Cherokee, and you, Ed, if you're gonna have a meeting later.
The link is in the slides to the minutes meeting, and you get the link there, and there is a info about when it's happening. Basically, it happens on the off week to this meeting, so it's gonna happen next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I have a short question also. When will you have a cap in some
That's a good question.
pull request?
Yeah, so we are still working on it, meaning we're discussing. So
yeah, but
in the doc, I'm promising something within months.
It doesn't have to be absolutely finished before you publish it, because that is the normal discussion forum. So please post what you got in a cap, and I'm sure you will get very many comments on it.
Lars, there's still work to do with fill up with quite a few use cases.
Yeah. So one other quick thing
that doesn't stop you from making a cap. It makes things easier, because then you get a natural input instead of keeping it in locked doors until you think you are ready in a couple of months and then present the cap.
So
this is what Mache is proposing, that we're not doing this behind the locked doors. So Mache is inviting everyone here, and I also would just like to thank Mache for kicking off this project and making it so we can get the input that we need and get the use cases from across the community to come to a common ground here. So yeah, big thanks, Mache.
Absolutely. Lars, it's every other Wednesday. Join.
Okay, if we could move on to Rob's agenda or item for proposed changes to Gateway API. And again, we can circle back to multi-network since there's clearly more discussion, but I'd just like to make sure we get through the rest of the agenda items first. But great discussion. So thanks. Over to you, Rob.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for a good discussion there. I have, I think, a relatively short item, but I wanted to raise it here because it is maybe has room to be somewhat controversial. In Gateway API, we have a few resources that have graduated to beta, as many of you are aware. We are considering adding and changing the conditions that we recommend implementations set in status. So we're considering that on a beta API. It's really unclear to me if API conventions allow that. I think they do, but I wanted to just point to this GEP, as a thing that's coming that we'd like to do and try and make all our conditions, all our status consistent across the API. But if anyone, sees that and says, oh, maybe we shouldn't do that, it would be great to get that kind of feedback earlier. We're trying to get a release out before KubeCon, so 4-ish weeks from now. And this is one of the major changes we're trying to get in. So I just wanted to raise this idea that this is coming. And if you would rather, if this kind of change feels too large in scope, please let us know sooner than later. That's all for me.
Cool, thanks, Rob. Next on the agenda was A Volts.
Hi, I'm Andy.
Andy.
I work on a team at Microsoft, and we've just been using this service internal traffic policy, and I was hoping to assist in getting it to GA. It seems like it's a bit, it's just delayed right now, and I just wasn't sure how to contribute. So I just thought I'd reach out here again to see if there's a way I can jump in and help.
Yeah, thanks for volunteering. I know any help on this is very appreciated. I chatted a bit with Andrew on this since he's the one who really led this kept going forward. What we need for GA is really just some extra testing and validation. I can talk with you. Just you can ping me in Slack or Andrew about this, but this has some intersections with the topology aware hints kept, and a lot of work went into ensuring that they worked reasonably well together. But we need a bit more testing still to ensure that what we think we did actually works as expected. Basically ensuring that if someone enabled topology aware hints and internal traffic policy, the interaction is exactly what we'd expect, and external traffic policy, those three all kind of play weirdly together. But yeah, we very, very open to help. I think everyone wants to see this one get to GA. Maybe follow up with me on Slack. I'm pretty easy to find.
Sounds good.
And we can go from there. Cool.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah, big thanks for looking to help with that. And then I think the last item on the agenda was Bridget.
I don't know if we need to spend a lot of time on this one, given that people want to discuss other things as well. I wanted to point out that there's been a discussion going on in SIG Cloud Provider, and some discussion pointed back to maybe we should double check with SIG Network to agree what should happen when a node reboots or kubelet restarts and the IP has changed. So we have a PR there that is welcoming your suggestions and input, and we have a docs update. And this is obviously, it would be great if we could get this into 1.26, just because it is it's basically a bug fix, but it might be important to make sure that everybody understands and agrees with what's happening here. Anyway, I know there's a lot of backstory to read there, so I don't expect an answer right off the bat here, but I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention, and then maybe we can discuss it in more detail in a future SIG network meeting. But I welcome your comments if you have any immediate ones.
Don't have any immediate comments. It sounds like one that might need a little looking through history.
Absolutely. There's a lot of history. So
cool. Yeah, I see the links in the doc.
Yep, but bug fix and docs update. And do we want to have changes, or do we want to just tell the world what is actually happening? You know, there's a number of questions that are open. The input is welcome.
Cool. Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Awesome. And I did want to say as well, I don't know if everyone knows how to see the notes, but I did put some links in the chat about joining the Kubernetes Slack, being on SIG network, link to the minutes that we're all talking about and showing from time to time. Anyway, for anyone who's new on the call and needs that info, look in the Zoom chat of this meeting right now.
So that was the last item on the agenda. I know there was still plenty of discussion to be had on some of the multi-network and VRF stuff. So we can go back to that for 10 minutes, unless there were any last minute items that anyone wanted to squeeze in. All right, sounds like not.
So if we have time, can we have a couple of words about the key AP thing? Kip?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Ed. I corrected my name from that robot name to my real name. So just to have a better clear understanding, because currently we are in the middle of a heavy engagement with all hyperscalers. And as I said, this multi-networking thing is important. Just want to understand if this is going to be in the direction of replacement of Multus completely, because I already read the intro document and I saw what this discussion is about. And I know that, I mean, one of the story that is written, and I think the user story is written in this document, is about this multiple interfaces, intercode deployment, like a 5G UPF networking function and so on. So is this to replace Multus completely and present a more Kubernetes native solution to this issue, or is this just to provide a single interface with initial sub interfaces within, and the rest is up to you?
So if
Hi,
I can add that.
This is Doug Smith. At least as far as I understand from Maciej's material, that this is not implementation specific. So what we're looking to define here is how you're going to express your intent to have these multiple networks. So this is where it's coming from. So it's not necessarily about one implementation or another, but about the use cases we have here and what Maciej has put together for a data representation of that functionality. It's not a replacement or swap or anything else, rather a way that we can handle this multi-networking natively in Kubernetes, and then the implementation details are up to how this will be implemented.
Yeah, what I meant by... Yeah, go on.
It will more replace the document that, well, Dan and the Kubernetes network custom resource definition de facto standard, that will go, right? And all the annotations to provide, so to express networking in the pod templates and so on, that will go away. That's what this will replace.
Yeah,
The CNI
yeah, exactly.
will still be there, right? But we'll
of course.
read the data from another resource.
Yeah, sure, of course. I was just talking about Multus as a enabler for this extra interfaces, because anyway you are using also CNI with Multus to provide the networking. Yeah?
Right.
So this is not going away.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Oh, sorry. So yeah, Multus is just one of the implementations of this, right? But basically the goal, what Doug just mentioned, is to enable APIs. And I see Ed probably laughing at us, but he already solved it other way. So let's talk about, but putting that aside, like our current idea is to kind of get rid of, like, if you're familiar with Multus, it's all annotation based. There we have some webhooks to do this and that. So the goal is to kind of get rid of all this, right? To make it maybe not have the functionality, but it's not do it in a kind of all arounds and leverage all the pieces that we currently have, so we don't have to modify the core. Let's make it the core. Let's make it so that you have the APIs, you have the fields you care about and you would want to fill in, and then have the controllers, existing controllers, look at those and based on them do something, right? So that's the initial goal. So and we're working with folks from Multus as well, so that we don't want to replace it. No.
Yeah. Okay.
It's one of the implementations, and basically
it's
and basically it should work with Multus. It should work for Multus, maybe with some modifications. I'm not saying it won't be so straightforward. There will be some migration story in the meantime, but we need to start discussion, because right now I think even with either the NSM stuff or here what we're doing, we need to have a path towards that. That's kind of everyone's happy and can use, right? And not create some sort of silos that we currently have.
Some of the stuff Multus does today will move into Kubernetes proper. With this
you can think it like that as well, yeah.
And more. I mean, there's no endpoints today in any good way and so on, right? So there's a lot of stuff.
Okay, I mean, either of these solutions, it's highly appreciated, because currently Kubernetes is strongly being involved in telco deployments. We are also trying to bring it down to the edge of an antenna. So it's also the RAN thing, which is the most crucial, most needy part of any deployment of a telco workload, with all its demands for latency and syncing time and PTP protocols and all of these nasty stuff. Kubernetes is reaching to the edge of an antenna, and this is why we are really now, I mean, in many things we are depending in things like operators, because we cannot change Kubernetes as fast as we want, and operators more or less also achieving some of the extra functionalities that we are looking for. But this one, if it's coming natively with Kubernetes, it will be also a lot of help in the idea of separating traffic, mainly because this is much more needed also, not only on the basis of control traffic, user traffic, but also on other things.
The latency problem you mentioned for being able to manipulate to get the outcome you want is not new to me.
I know this is not related to latency.
We've problem is typically that do x86 based networking at all.
No, this is not related to latency, but I'm just saying that Kubernetes is reaching this. It's not only now for IT; it's also a lot for NT.
It's not x86 networking; it's kernel networking that gives you the latency. I mean, I have VPP processing a terabit per second of IPsec traffic on a commodity server with no accelerating hardware. It's not the x86 architecture that gives you the problem. It's having to process kernels packaged to the kernel, right? If you move to user space, you can run.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say this also. This KEP thing is we are really interested in knowing its information and how it's going to develop, and looking forward also to know if someone can provide a date that maybe an alpha or beta can be there anytime. So at least we get our hands on it and start testing it.
Talking a long time, but Ed, we should talk SmartNICs someday, but not here.
Again, ping me on Slack. I'd love to talk SmartNICs. And DPUs.
I'm moving all our stuff down on a blue field right now. Well, I'll give you.
Just ping me. on the closing note, I welcome everyone to the meeting next Wednesday. It's again 8 a.m. Pacific time. to kind of come in, and there's a the link to the minutes for that particular meeting is in the slides, and it's in the minutes of today's meeting, so there's plenty of those. And basically you can put your agenda, it's all open, so like every other meetings.
Yeah,
great. Thank you.
About Malthus, I believe the correct question is if you will still have CNI plugins. Malthus is just like an umbrella CNI plugin. But I assume
and I think that's an implementation detail as far as I see it, is as how this is implemented. We've you know, I think in Maciej's docs, you'll see that, you know, it tries to avoid that kind of a detail. We're trying to figure out the use case, how it maps to this data, and then the implementations, I think, can take it from there. I do think that has interesting implications for CNI, but I think that that's not the entirety of the conversation. I think that we're kind of hitting it at a different level than how this is handled, right?
Absolutely. And a part that's done by CNI today could be done generic, right? And this part can't, and so on. And
yeah.
I mean, the easy joke would be there's no firewalling without the CNI, but.
Well, no, I mean, there are ways to deal with that problem. Because the problem with the CNI is it's at the wrong point in the life cycle. It can only do things at startup time. And there's a huge set of use cases where you want to be able to connect together containers in order to chain them that you're kind of screwed for.
You can have something else calling the CNI to insert other interfaces at runtime and so on and change things. But I agree with you. We need to rework a lot of.
One other quick thing, Maciej, and I'll reach out to you offline. The 8 a.m. Pacific time is complicated for me to come talk about SM, so I'll have to work on it because I literally lead another open source community in that time slot. So I'll see what I can do to juggle balls around, but sure. It may not be next week as a result. It may have to be the week after.
That's fine. We do bi-weekly though, so
sorry to cut you guys off. We're at time now, so we're gonna have to end up the meeting, but invite everybody who's interested to join next week, Wednesday, 8 a.m. it sounds like, and we'll have this meeting again in 2 weeks, I believe. Yeah. Thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.